On this episode of Insight, in the aftermath of tragedy on a high school campus, what changes are coming to CMS to prevent gun violence? The first quarter of the school year is in the books. Let's take a look at the district report card. And what's the strategy to breaking the link so all students, regardless of their zip code, can achieve? Let's ask the superintendent for insight. Hello everyone, I'm Coretta Wilson and welcome to another season of Insight with Superintendent Clayton Wilcox, the show that keeps you up to date on the issues and initiatives in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. And we provide that insight the best way we know how, by simply asking the one person who should know. Dr. Clayton Wilcox, the superintendent of CMS, welcome to the show. Glad to see you once again.
It's good to be home.
Good to be home, of course. We start this episode, though, with a very frank conversation on safety in our schools, a topic that's been on the minds of people in the community.
Honestly, the best thing that we can do is we can talk to our friends and see how they feel personally.
Like, I feel bad for the kids that go to school where you want it to be a safe place, but now you don't feel safe because something like this has occurred.
I really have to rely on the community, my students particularly, to help us keep the place safe.
There's no way to get 2,200 students inside the building and go through security like that to check everyone through metal detectors. I don't think that's even realistic.
The people in the community have had their say. What do you want to say back in return to the community?
Well, I think first and foremost, I want to say I'm incredibly saddened and sorry that we are where we are. We lost not just one young man, but two. A young man who was tragically killed at Butler High School, and then the young man who is alleged to have pulled the trigger. Right. He will forever be incarcerated if he's proven guilty in a court of law. So we've lost two young men, and one was too many. Yeah. And then we've had a spat of guns after that where I don't know if some kind of fever took hold of people or what, but we've had some of those things. And we're working really hard every day because safety is the most important thing that we can provide parents, is the knowledge that their kids are going to come home from school each day.
Yeah, definitely. And we know that when parents drop students off in the carpool line or walk them to the bus stop, they expect them to go to school, get a lesson, and then come back home. What are some of the next steps that CMS can take to ensure that happens?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. One, we are looking carefully right now at security, and we're looking at, are there things like wanding young people who come in? Are there things like changing dress codes so kids don't wear baggy clothing, or perhaps the hoodies that are so popular with kids because they can hide things? We're looking at a number of things, but we also don't want to overreact and make our schools feel like jails or like airports, because the one thing that we know is that while it may give some temporary relief to some, it actually causes some other issues that we're not prepared to face, which is kids not feeling safe, even though you'd think that's a bit counterintuitive. So we're really focused right now on how do we help our young people to feel school as a sanctuary? How do we make them feel respected and responsible in the schools? How do we get them to say something when they see something? Because as you know, we'd had a number of gun incidents in the school system, and every one prior to this one was resolved because kids said, we don't want it here.
What is it that parents, students, and teachers can possibly do to make our schools safer?
Well, let's talk about parents first of all. One, if you notice a mood change in your child and you're not prepared to deal with it, maybe they're angry, maybe they're withdrawn, speak up. We have counselors, we have psychologists, we have people that can help support the family. Or we can refer you to community resources if that's what you'd rather do. If we talk about teachers and students, we need to continue to develop great relationships between teachers and kids. We need to make sure that our teachers are incredibly caring and that they're focused on kids and that they're listening to kids. They're not just talking at kids. We need teachers to reassess a number of things that they do as a matter of practice. Maybe we need to think about the discretionary time that kids have and not fill it with reams and reams of homework that's redundant. Maybe we can get by with less. So we have to do a lot of things differently. We have to engage our faith community differently. We have to engage our law enforcement community differently. But all in all, what we have to do is find a way to make schools become that sanctuary where these kinds of things just don't happen.
It's conflict resolution, is it not?
It is, absolutely, and it's a skill that you're going to have throughout your life, so why not start early on in kindergarten, first grade, and then certainly through high school.
Now, some have talked about metal detectors. How can CMS possibly implement metal detectors at all of the schools? We have so many open campuses, and how would something like that be paid for?
Well, well, first of all, money isn't the issue. We have the resources. Our county commissioners have been great to us. We also have some discretionary money because, when you have a budget as large as ours, there are things like salary laps that you can reallocate dollars from to do so. So money's not an excuse for us. We can't do all the things that people are asking, but when you start looking at things like metal detectors, x-ray machines, wands, you really have to balance that against kind of the cost-benefit ratio, and not in terms of price, but in terms of time. If you have 3,000 kids coming into school, how long is it going to take you to get them into school if they're each going through a metal detector, putting their book bag through an x-ray machine, and then perhaps being wanded or having their backpack gone through? How much time does that take? Now, one might say that if it saves a life, it's worth it, and I wouldn't argue that. But what I would say is, at some level, we have to attack this practically. And I think one of the things that we may do is, while it may not be metal detectors, we may be wanding kids on a random basis. We may be changing dress code. We may be doing things that people hadn't thought of before. One of the things that I'm actually contemplating asking the principals is to implement a no backpack rule beginning as early as the middle of this month. We'll see if we get to that point. But again, any place where kids can hide something, I think we've got to kind of expose and put under the light.
Okay, and definitely a start. And safety, of course, always on the mind of the community. Well, the first quarter in the books, we got that down and under us now. Report cards are going home. What would be the grade you would give CMS at this particular time?
Wow, that's a tough question.
In any area, I guess.
Well, it's because it is a broad question, but I think we've done a solid job. I think we've communicated pretty well, but you know what, as I sit here today, we still have late buses. We're a quarter of the way into the year. We've not been able to hire all the people that we need. We've raised our starting salaries to $15 an hour. We've given our veterans a little bit of a boost in that as well, but we're still struggling to hire drivers and keep drivers, to retain drivers. There I'd probably say we got, maybe a high C, maybe a B. Academically, I'm really proud of what's happening in our classrooms. I think we're really doing well there. But we had some starts and delays with the hurricanes and storms, and so we maybe don't have the momentum. I'd probably give us a high B there as well.
Yeah.
In terms of my own performance, I think I'm responsible for all of it. So I'd probably say, I'm right in that B range with everybody. We've got to up our game.
You mentioned the hurricanes. Wow,
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the school year, we dealt with Florence and we dealt with Michael. We had the makeup days that we don't have to make up. We have days I'm not sure we may have to make up. Speak to the community on how those decisions were made, and we still may have inclement weather.
No, we're not going to have that. We're not.
As we move into the winter months, what are you going to do?
Well, we're kind of up against it right now. But, when we make these decisions, we don't make them in isolation. We make them in consultation with not only emergency management and emergency preparedness, but we make that in terms of talking to our local police departments. We talk to the fire. We talk to hundreds of people before we make that decision, and we make the decision we think is in the best end of the system. The one issue where we continue to kind of get beat up, and I understand this, and we're going to move away from it a little bit, is we close the entire system when we have some. But I think people don't often understand the complexity of the school system. It's not as easy as saying, well, those 10 schools don't have power, so send the other 167 to school. We have magnet programs that draw kids from across the county. We have other specialized programs. We have obligations to employees and employee groups in terms of compensation. It's not easy, but I will tell you that we've learned a lot this year. And I think people who have been watching me closely know that over the last 2 years, we've played with closing certain schools at certain times. We've done a number of one-off closings. We'll start to probably do some more regionalized closings as we get to winter because, the snowfalls don't fall at the same pace and in the same place. So we're going to do some things different.
Before we go to the break, you recently released the strategic plan for CMS. What's the main focus of that?
Well, I think the main focus is that we know that we have 3 levers of change, that we know that great teaching matters hugely, so we're investing in our teachers. We're looking at the professional development that comes to teachers. We're very focused on creating a rigorous curriculum across the system. And then we've got to recapture some time that we're losing to kids. So moving those 3 levers, I think, are going to be important. And then all of that has to run across the cross-cutting factors of our culture in the school system and equity.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll put a comma there and talk more about it a little bit later on.
Yeah, we'll
for
break
sure.
out the big PowerPoint presentation and show the community.
For sure. When we come back, has the lesson plan changed for academic success in CMS? Get more insight after this short break. Even with a modest bump in enrollment this year, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools has the responsibility of educating more than 147,000 students. So what's the game plan to make sure our students are on the right track for success? Let's get some insight from CMS Chief Academic Officer Brian Kingsley. Welcome to the show, and of course, welcome to CMS. Glad to have you with us.
I'm so glad to be here. It's an honor to be a part of this community, so thank you.
Well, of course, you are new to CMS, but you are certainly not new to education. You're in a new role here. What exactly is the responsibility of the Chief Academic Officer?
I think it's one of the most important roles in a school system. I try to think of it and simplified in terms of looking at 3 things: people, process, and performance, and in that order. I think one of my primary roles, it would be to build teacher capacity, as well as the leadership capacity of our school principals and those that supervise school principals, to ensure that they have the tools, the resources, and the capacity to support the dynamic needs of our students in our changing community. From a process perspective, there's needs and resources that our students and teachers need, such as curriculum, professional development, and processes that we need to ensure that we're putting the highest quality resources in front of every one of our children and in front of every one of our classrooms. But it goes beyond those 2 things. It goes, we really want to make sure that our students and our families and our community are experiencing school in a positive and joyful way. And I think that's a part of my role.
Let me ask you this. You're the Chief Academic Officer. You're in a very big office. You're not in the classroom. But what is your role in making sure that your insight is inside of the classroom?
Well, we make a lot of decisions at the central office level, but we can't do it in isolation of what our schools need. I mean, I really value getting into the schools, talking to teachers, talking to community members about what is their current reality, what are the things that they see and that they need. And
what has that been?
Well, in the first 5 or 6 weeks, it's been really focused on curriculum.
Okay.
We recognize that when we look at our student achievement scores, there's areas for growth and areas of improvement. And a lot of those scenarios are rooted in the needs of our curriculum. About 6-7 years ago, when we changed standards and raised and elevated standards for teachers and students across the state, across the country, unfortunately, it was timed with the Great Recession. And so while we raised expectations, curriculum budgets zeroed out, and I think schools across the country and in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools are still trying to get into a healthy place.
How difficult is it to get those different resources in front of the students, because we have such a variety of students in CMS? Some may need technology, some may need the book.
Yeah. Well, I think it's tremendously difficult. I think we're a pioneer in this country in terms of technology. We're the largest holder of Google Chromebooks in the world. But I think technology doesn't solve the problem. It either amplifies good instruction or it could amplify poor instruction. I think the experiences that I want to make sure that our kids have is that they're really deeply involved in looking at different types of text, that they're problem solving, that they're getting a chance to have student discourse and grappling with things and communicating and collaborating in new and different ways.
We had the recent EOG scores and graduation rates. What are the next steps in making sure that all of our students graduate ready for colleges and careers?
Yeah, so I think it's not a simple solution, right? It's not. But I think our Breaking the Link report in our district really outlines 3 key levers that I think are primary functions, and that is thinking about how students spend time in school, That's not just the amount of time, but the type of experience. It should be joyful, so students want to continue to come back to school and interact in new and unique ways. It talks a lot about having great teachers at the center of our instruction. You know, we're not just a learning organization for 147,000 students. It's also a learning organization for 8,000 teachers.
Right.
And really being intentional about how we're providing development for them is so important. And also thinking about how students can access rigorous, not just content, but coursework. Okay. Different schools offer different courses, and we want to make sure that the zip code that a student resides in doesn't designate the types of opportunities that they have. So these are things that I'm looking at early on to really raise the standard of those types of experiences in all settings, so they come together. Throughout my entire career, those have been the recipe for success.
And I know you probably touched on this in one of those responses. Do you agree that we are trying to teach our students and prepare them for jobs that have not been created yet? If we're doing that, are we doing it properly?
In some cases, yes, and in some cases, no. I think it's very difficult to prepare students for things that we may not know as adults what that may look like. But I think we have recognized by listening to the workforce and the needs of the community that there's some transferable skill sets, that they're struggling to find talent now, that people that can solve problems, that are new and unique, that they can work in a team, that they're collaborative, that they're creative. We want to make sure that we're not teaching to a test. You know, the EOGs are one element of success, but they can't define a person's life experience.
Last question for you. Academic steps in closing the achievement gap. What do we do?
Well, I think it's one, calling it out that we have one, that we recognize that there are inequities across our school system, that we have achievement gaps that are unacceptable, and we have to be really aggressive in pursuing them. I think we have to be intentional about creating a balance between pressures and supports. We can't fire our way to excellence. You know, we got to incent the right behaviors and put pressures in the right place. To make sure that our people will understand that there's a sense of urgency about not just identifying inequities, but disrupting them. And then making sure that we're matching that with supports. And the challenge that we have in such a large community is that it's not just the supports for children, it's the supports that our adults need to be able to do their job well. And that's what makes this complex, but it's also what makes it really exciting. And one of the reasons why I'm really glad to be here.
Well, you have a very exciting and challenging job. And again, we welcome you to Team CMS, and we hope to get more insight from you pretty soon.
I look forward to it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Good meeting you.
Appreciate it.
More insight from the superintendent after this break. Welcome back. School safety is always a priority for a superintendent, and he's appointed a new top cop to lead the CMS Police Department, Chief Lisa Mangum.
Your integrity as a police officer is one of the most important things you can have. Always maintain your integrity. You know, in order for a student to be able to learn effectively, they got to feel comfortable. They have to feel safe in an environment in order to learn.
Well, she's been on the job for a couple of months now. I want to get your insight about this new top cop.
Well, Lisa's an incredible police officer first, but she's also a great leader. And so she's going to take this force of police officers that we have and turn them into what's already a fine group, an even better group. So we're really excited about what she brings. Lisa brings a really decorated career as a police officer in Charlotte. She brings to us a wealth of school experience. She's been with us now a number of years. So I just think that she was the perfect person. The other thing she brings, and you know, some people might think that this isn't important, but she brings with us a sense of possibility. Lots of young girls can look at her and say, I can aspire to be the leader of a law enforcement agency. And look what CMS has done. They have one. So we're excited about what she brings, not just in terms of her expertise, but in terms of her role model and the kind of vision that she provides for us.
Looking forward to working with her.
You'll like her.
Well, it's always tough competition when it comes to naming the CMS Principal of the Year. Out of more than 170 candidates, this year the honor goes to Dr. Tamisha Barnes-Jones of West Charlotte High School. I want to say congratulations to her.
I do want to say congratulations to Dr. Jones. You know, what was interesting for me is I got to go over and be part of the surprise party for her. And to watch her come into the room and just light up was amazing. But more importantly, to watch the love that she had with her student body and her faculty was incredibly exciting.
West Charlotte is the greatest school in Charlotte-Mecklenburg School.
It was just a really cool day for the family, but more importantly, it's a cool day for CMS.
All right, congratulations to her for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much for watching. We hope you've learned something that will help you become an informed parent, an energized employee, or an engaged community member. Your support is important to the success of CMS. We'll see you next time for more insight.